So I just got back from Utah from a place called Caneville. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And while I was there, I was shooting a new documentary that I'll be probably releasing this summer with an incredible athlete named Braxton Tomlinson. And like any good documentary, when you can find someone who's in the midst of not just a physical journey, but something existential going on in their life, and you can find them in that very present moment as it unfolds, then you need to make that film. And Braxton is an incredible athlete. He flings his motorbike in the air like hundreds of feet, like it's nothing. Made for some pretty cool footage. In full disclosure, DJI did give me this 4D to use for this project and a small budget to actually make this YouTube video, but instead I put all that money towards the documentary film. The entire budget went into getting this incredible group of filmmakers on set and to this remote location, and we got some pretty cool toys to use on this shoot, but more on that later. But in making this film about Braxton, I wanted to challenge myself and I wanted to explore how I can use the 4D as a main camera for a documentary. Traditionally, I've always just made most of my films almost entirely just handheld with various cinema cameras. But in this case, we were using the 4D almost exclusively to make this documentary. I wanted to push the use of this camera, see it in some different scenarios that I haven't seen it yet, which meant using it for every element of this film, from a traditional interview setup to high-flying handheld on the edge of cliffs, to using it in its new flex mode, where it actually has a cable coming right out of the camera body and that you can run around with something the size of a mirrorless camera. We even used it to capture intimate documentary moments traditionally that I'm by myself with a small camera and no crew. And of course, I wanted to throw this 4D on the end of the crane arm on the Ford Raptor with the override guys, and man, we got some insane stuff. It was fun. But let's break down each element of the camera, and I'm gonna be talking about the filmmaking, not just the technical. So the first thing I wanna speak to is this new mode called Flex. So this mode, as you can see, you still have the camera body, but we would actually put this in a backpack with this cable right here coming out of the top. And what's really fun about this is it breaks the camera down into like almost kind of a mirrorless camera. I know it's a bit bigger than that, but it doesn't weigh much, and you still have the monitor right here for all the camera settings. What's great about this is it makes the camera lighter. You can go for longer, and we'd even strap it into the backpack with these little fasteners here. Flex mode is so fun because it takes the 4D, which is a true cinema camera, and it jam packs it down into this almost like little video game controller. You still have all of the control of the camera, and that's one of the main advantages I find of the 4D, is that you can focus with your thumb, you can go through all the menus right there, you can click and follow and track your character's face, and then you have every setting on this LCD. You can get through all the settings really quickly, and playback is so seamless and so quick. And as a crew, we get to review the footage really quickly and find out how we want to improve the next shot. And a big shout out to Chris Howe, who lent me his Lumix lenses here, which is kind of one of the great things about the 4D is any lens you put on here, when you plug it into the LiDAR, it reads the lens's serial number or the metadata coming off of it, knows what lenses it is, and then it will make it fully autofocus. But I usually keep this in the AMF mode so that I can override the autofocus when I need to, because there's sometimes creatively that you may want to focus on the background rather than your actual subject. Another thing I've really enjoyed with this camera is sometimes when Nick would be operating, I would take the monitor and we would go to gyro mode. And this is where my monitor becomes the actual translation of the camera movements. As I move the monitor, the camera head moves also. So when we were in the studio running around Braxton as he was doing these burnouts, I was actually pointing where the camera was looking, and the way I was moving it, it's so sensitive, it gave it a handheld feel, but we were able to run around without getting the footsteps of Nick. So it's this beautiful blend of handheld and steady cam. It's really cool seeing the capabilities of gyro mode, especially on the side of this really crazy cliff. And while Nick was up there trying to make sure he wasn't falling off of it, I was actually operating the camera with the monitor, which was very easy. I could just plant my feet there and just move the monitor around, and we were able to get this sick shot of him coming up the wall here. Now, one of the biggest elements of documentary is good audio. And I was a bit concerned of that when I got the 4D at first because the XLR module hasn't been released yet and I can't wait for that. But what I did do is I got a very long 6-foot mini jack cable and I threw my Sennheiser MKE 400 on the front of this and the audio sounded amazing. This is extremely crucial when what your character is saying is important to the film.
I can't help but think like he would definitely want us to come back here. Like,
oh yeah.
I don't think he's bitter at this place by any means.
No.
I just think audio is always important. For me as a documentarian, I want the real world sounds. I don't want to go into post for everything. I want to hear what the person's saying. I want to hear the texture of the environment. And at times too, we had labs on everyone and we would just jam sync the tentacle adapter into the camera to get time code going so that we could sync that at a later time. So the camera does accept time code. And I'll talk about our interview setup, but first, I decided that if I was gonna travel all the way to the middle of freaking nowhere, that we should at least have some fun toys. Originally, we were thinking of just kind of sitting in the back of a pickup truck, shooting handheld, but the more we thought about it, seeing the type of terrain that there is in Swing Arm City and Caneville, it's pretty dangerous if we weren't strapped down. So luckily though, Jordan Oberman from Override came out with their whole team with their Raptor, the Ford F-150. And so we threw the 4D on the end of that crane arm, and that was fun. And the 4D performed very well on the end of that crane arm, specifically because of the wireless control. Often when you're on crane arms or you're having car mounts, you have to go through wireless video. And as we all know, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's constantly dropping. I don't know why we can send signals to the moon really quickly or around the world, but then when I'm on set 10 feet, it seems to drop always. We were out for 3 days filming with this camera and never once did signal drop at all. And so to throw this camera on the end of an arm, and then what was awesome is that we just got the monitor and I just took off the handles here, strapped them onto the monitor, and essentially that monitor becomes the camera. It's like the brain, it's the camera is extended right into that monitor. I have full control, all the settings. We never need to touch the camera on the end of the arm, except to blow some dust off it occasionally.
She's a bit dusty, but she's doing well.
The ecosystem around the 4D is so cohesive and it works so well that when you're on set, you don't want to be thinking about the technology, you want to be thinking about the story. Now let's talk about the image quality on this camera, because to be honest, I initially had my doubts with the 4D. I haven't seen DJI necessarily making traditional cinema cameras. I'm very used to working with S-Log3 and the Alexa. That's the type of footage I'm used to working with, and the skin tones that come off those sensors are amazing. But the D-Log on this camera, and I mean this sincerely, is very impressive. Our interview looked seamless. It was beautiful how it rendered Braxton's skin tones and how, to use an overused term, cinematic it did look. Our interview, we just used tube lights. We had a giant softbox from Aperture that we put above to give some ambient light. Then we used one of their dome lights and skirted it off as our key source, threw up some Titan tubes on the background, and we even let a window crack through for the beginning of the interview. And Nick Dean, who was operating for that interview, got some beautiful shots from that way. And also too, shooting out in the desert, it was so bright. You would have expected the footage to clip at some point, but it never did. We were able to recover all of our skies and get all the details and all that grit, dirt, dust, and in the shadows. I really am impressed with this, and we are only shooting 422 HQ. Overall, I'm very happy with the way this camera performed. It was a tough challenge because I'm used to just holding a normal handheld camera with a top handle. But as the shoot progressed, this just became more natural. The types of moves we were getting, the push-ins, the half arc movements around them, just getting close into their face and being able to control the focus myself. Very happy with the way the 4D moved. It likely won't always be the A cam on my shoots, but it's definitely a tool that I want to bring onto set with me, because with that gyro mode and the flex mode, you can begin to get this unique style of documentary cinematic movement that I haven't seen necessarily anywhere else. It's this mix between the smoothness of a Steadicam but the human shake of handheld, which I believe is important for authenticity when shooting for documentary. Also, big shout out to everyone who came out to make this possible. Most of all, thank you to Braxton and Briggs, his brother. They were amazing talent and they opened up their hearts on camera, both in the interviews and on site. It was really easy working with them. A big thank you too to my boy Victor Radix. He came out on a whim. He's never camera assisted, but he crushed it with this camera, learned it in a day and was awesome there and even got some sick photos. Also, a huge thank you to Nick Dean, who helped coordinate and make this whole shoot happen. Spencer Kofed, our photographer, who just was hiding around in different places, getting blasted by sand. He crushed it as well. And a shout out to Bentley Raleigh for his amazing BTS footage that he provided on this, who also happens to be an incredible DP himself. And as well, all the guys from Override, Matt, Damien, JP, and Jordan, who runs the company. Thank you for all of your help. Yeah, thank you guys. Wouldn't be the same without you on this one.
Of course.
Thank
Drive
you so
safe.
much.
Yep. Drive safe.
Couldn't have made the shoot without you. Oh, and Stu at DJI. Much love, brother. I'll be doing some more stuff about this camera and about this documentary. Let me know if you have any questions below. And thank you too to Landon on my team, sitting right over there. He learned this camera alongside me as I was trying to come up with the ideas for the story. But to be honest, it's a pretty seamless camera. Anyone could learn this and anyone could perfect it. And it's fun too, because I do like video games. And that's kind of what you feel like when you're using this. It's like a big video game controller. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. I hate goodbyes. I feel useless as an operator because the camera knows how everything to do it, just like knows how to follow. It's my first day. I did the classic hit record when it was already recording when we were ready to go. Go. Yeah. He's out! I missed it again! No, you didn't! I just was nervous that you were gonna hit the truck. I know, I was too. All right, okay, go. This thing has torque.
So figure out which one your back brake is.
No, is this my front brake?
You'll feel it.
It's
No,
your back.
that's your back
That's the
brake.
back brake.
So keep your hand on that one, like feathering it.
Front load and then do it.
Just
go for it. Just go for it.
Because that'll bring your front end down. Oh, shit. Yeah.